Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you in this auditorium and also those of you who are joining us through the live streaming of this evening. My name is Amit Karna. I am a professor of strategy at IIM Ahmedabad and chairperson of the PGPX program at IIM Ahmedabad. And it's a real delight for me to welcome here our guest for the evening, Mr. Ajay Piramal, who will be speaking on the topic Eternal Values in a Changing World. This event, as all of you are aware, has been jointly organized by the PGPX Speaker Series and the School of Ultimate Leadership, Seoul. So, before I get into the agenda for the day, may I request our Director, Professor Bharat Bhaskar, to please welcome Mr. Ajay Piramal with a bouquet of flowers. May I also request Dr. Hasmukh Adia, the Vice Chairman of Seoul, to welcome our guest of the evening. Thank you. Thank you. So, before we get to the talk, I would like to invite Dr. Hasmukh Adia to say a few words about the School of Ultimate Leadership. Dr. Adia is an officer of the Indian Administrative Services who retired after a very long and illustrious career in 2018 as the Union Finance Secretary and Revenue Secretary with the Government of India. Currently, he is actively involved as a principal advisor to the Chief Minister's Office in Gujarat since last couple of years. He is also the non-executive chairman of the Gift City close by here, GSCL and GMDC. And he's also the Chancellor of the Central University of Gujarat and a member of Board of Governors of IIM Bangalore. Currently, he's also here today in the position as a Vice Chairman of the School of Ultimate Leadership, about which he will talk about. Interestingly, Dr. Adia is also a postgraduate in accountancy and is a gold medalist from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. So please welcome Dr. Adia.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real honor to host Sri Ajay Piramal ji at this evening today. I'm indeed grateful to you, Ajay ji, for having accepted our invitation to come and deliver a leadership lecture here today in IIM Ahmedabad. I understand and I have seen your life and your career, and you are one of those examples of an ultimate leader who we need to present to the society. So we are really grateful to you that you accepted our invitation and you are here today to deliver this talk. Friends, many of you must be wondering, what is this School of Ultimate Leadership that we are talking about? So, first of all, we all agree that if our country has to progress, leadership is required in every sector. Without good quality leadership, we won't be able to progress as a country. And leadership is something which is different from management. So all of you, some of you who are students and who are professors here at IIM, you understand management better, but leadership is something different. Management is all about managing the resources or the stakeholders outside of us, while leadership is all about internal mindset. It's a core part of one's personality. It's a value system. It's an ethics which govern your own style of management, and that is called leadership. So this is an institution which is sponsored privately by private donors. It's not a government organization, it's a private organization. And we have in our board Mr. Sudhir Mehta of Torrent Group, Mr. Deepak Parekh of HDFC, and few other people. This institution aims to develop leadership in the country, and leadership of a different kind. That's why it is called School of Ultimate Leadership. Leadership with ethics, leadership which is based on Indic wisdom, leadership which is not exploitative, leadership which is for the greater good of the people. This is the meaning of ultimate leadership. We have a campus which is going to come up. 20 acres of land is available already. And our campus is on the way to Gift City. If you go to Gift City ever, you will find the board of School of Ultimate Leadership. We are in the process of constructing the campus there. It will take maybe 3 years to complete everything and to start regular courses there. But as of now, we have started with small programs like this. One of this is leadership lecture series. We also had a policy workshop for certain officials of education department of all the states. And several other activities are going on, but these are only short-term activities which can be done without the need for campus. We have today, of course, the director of IIM. I'm really thankful to him for having given us the opportunity to partner with them at this occasion. And we also have Saurabh Johri, who is the in-charge director of School of Ultimate Leadership here, my colleague who is looking after the day-to-day activities of the institute. Formally, this institute will be launched in February of 2025. It is not yet launched. This is a pre-launch kind of activity that we are doing. So with this little introduction about the School of Ultimate Leadership, I would like to again thank Ajay ji for having accepted our invitation, and I'd like to welcome all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Hasmukh ji, and thanks a lot for your collaboration on this event. It's really a pleasure to get to the next segment of this evening. So, Mr. Ajay Piramal, of course, doesn't require introduction, but let me say a few words about him before we invite him to the dais. So, as we all know, Mr. Ajay Piramal is one of the leading industrialists and philanthropists of the country. As the chairman of the Piramal Group, he has transformed it into a $10 billion conglomerate now with global presence and diverse interests in financial services, pharmaceuticals, and real estate. The group now operates in 30 countries with products sold in over 100 markets worldwide. He's also deeply invested in strengthening India's socio-economic potential through the Piramal Foundation. And the foundation operates again in 25 states across the country, impacting over 112 million lives in partnership with governments, local bodies, focusing on healthcare, education, and human development in marginalized communities. In 2022, it is a matter of great honor for our country that Mr. Piramal received an honorary commander of the Order of the British Empire by the Queen for services to the UK-India trade relationship, as he also serves as the co-chair of the UK-India CEO Forum. Mr. Piramal serves on the Harvard Business School's board of Dean's Advisors, and he's also been the non-executive director of Tata Sons. He's the president and chairman of Anand National University in Ahmedabad, and serves as the chairman of the Pratham Education Society. So you can see that he's got a long list of interests across business and social sector. Mr. Piramal holds an honors degree in science from Mumbai University and a master's degree from JBIMS. He has completed his advanced management program from HBS and is an honorary doctor of science from IIT Indore and has an honorary doctorate from Amity University, India. Right? So it's really a pleasure, Mr. Piramal, to have you here today, this evening. And we are all eager to listen your thoughts on the topic for this evening. So the way we have tried to divide this next about 45 minutes is that we'll listen to Mr. Piramal's thoughts. And then we'll have Professor Sunil Sharma here, who will then moderate the session. And if you have any questions, Anirban and his team will collect those questions and then pass over to Professor Sharma, and we'll have a moderated Q&A session after that. So can I please welcome Mr. Piramal on the dais?
Good evening. Dr. Hasmukh Adia, Professor Bhaskar, all the other professors from IIM, and dear participants. It's a pleasure to be able to speak to you today. I think Dr. Adia actually gave a very good introduction to the subject. It is really what I'm also going to talk to you about is what is leadership within. In some ways, all of us are leaders. We may be leaders. Some of us could be leaders in business, in our community. We could be leaders in our house with anybody or ourselves. So it's probably important to at least look at what leadership is from my eyes. Yesterday was the funeral of Mr. Ratan Tata. I was also present at that funeral, and I saw hundreds of thousands of people waiting outside and just being around the place. Most of them had not even met Mr. Tata ever before and had only read about him, heard him, and yet they all had tears in their eyes and all spoke one thing. I think there was a common frame, and you can see that across, whether it was the Honorable Prime Minister of the country or whether it was a common man. There was a common thread that he was a good man. I've had the good fortune of being on the Tata board now for 8 years, and I've known Mr. Tata for long before that. Just to put it in perspective, if you looked at business, when he started as the chairman of Tata Sons, which was 91, the market capitalization of the Tata Group was only about 5,000 or 6,000 crores. Today, when he passed away, the market cap of the Tata Group, which is the largest group in the country for many years, is approximately 35 lakh crores. So he was a great businessman. But yet, if you saw people, they didn't talk so much about his business value he created, but what was the other values that he created. And to me, I think that's the heart of the Tata Group, that these are values that come first, and because of these values, economic value is also created. They are not diverse. In fact, it is because of your practicing values first, economic value is also created. I have chosen the subject like this, of eternal values in a changing society, because you've seen the Tata example of eternal values for 160 years. And what is a changing world? I think the amount of change that we have seen in the last 4 years, I don't think anybody had expected it. You know, we have many people who do risk analysis and who do all this, whether it is in the country, outside in the world, in our own companies. But there was not one person who had even thought of risk that COVID will strike the world and the whole world will come to a standstill for 2 years. Can you imagine the change that it brought about? Or tell me which analyst or which person thought that there would be a war between Russia and Ukraine and the entire world would be caught in that? Or for that matter, and now the war is in Russia is now about 2.5 years. It'll be 3 years soon next year, in the early next year. Who would have thought that the crisis in the Middle East would start between Israel and the rest of the world? So there is a lot of change that is happening today. And yet there are certain values which are so important. And I think my own view is I've been a student of management as well. I think we need to actually emphasize some of these values because all of you here, in some way or the other, will already are leaders or will become leaders as you go up. And it is so important to understand this. And these are eternal values. So it's not going to be a very complicated lecture. I'm going to make it as simple because I think its simplicity is what at least I understand. These values, why do we call them eternal? Because I feel that all these values have been already stated more than 5,000 years ago when the Gita was spoken by the Lord Krishna. You would wonder, why am I speaking about Gita in a management class, a management school, when people say that, we have to be secular. In some ways, I believe that what the values that we are taught or what we have spoken about in the Gita is really very secular. It is not a particular religion or anything. It can be applied across the board. So that's why I'm going to speak a little bit about that. We need to understand the setting of the Gita. The Gita was told not to somebody who was meditating right in the Himalayas. It was not that it was spoken to a young man who was at the height of his career, Arjun. Arjun was the world's best archer. There he was in the midst of a battlefield, a young fellow below 30 years of age, and in that time he was given these lessons. It is deliberately chosen, this setting. It's because all of us, in some way or the other, are in a battlefield in the midst. And in the midst of that, what is these values that we can do? So the first thing I feel is that we all need to have a vision as to what we want to do, whether we are in business, because I presume most of you would be in business, or even in life. What is the vision that we have ahead of us? And how do we get to it? Again, I'm going to speak to you a little bit of a quotation which has inspired me in my life. So I thought I'll share with you. In fact, it is a very personal talk today because I thought that's the best way to tell you what I feel and what I have experienced I've been now working for a long time, more than 45 years. So you can take that experience. It's a quote from the Upanishad, which says, "You are what your deep driving desire is. As is your desire, so is your will. As is your will, so is your deed. And as is your deed, so is your destiny. Let me just say. So first is that you have a desire or you have a vision that this is what I want to do. Then you start willing it, that I want that to happen. And you're determined to make it happen. So that is your will. So as is a desire, so is your will. As is your will, so is your deed. Once you have had the will, you have to do the deed. You have to do the action for it. And that action leads to your destiny. That is where the universe in some ways conspires with you to see that it is your destiny can be done. Is this only a quotation which is there in the books? My experience is otherwise. I will give you a personal experience. We were traditionally in the textile business. But in 1988, we went into the pharmaceutical business through the acquisition of a multinational in India called Nicholas Laboratories. At that time, our rank in India in terms of sales ranking was 48th. So after studying that business for a year or something, I told the board that by 2000, we want to be in the top 5 instead of 48. Frankly, nobody believed it. But rather than just saying it, we said we will do everything possible and make an attempt to achieve it. And through organic growth, investments, through acquisitions and mergers, we went and did it. And by 2000, we did get that to number 5. So what I'm trying to say is that if we are determined to do something, it can happen. And now I will come to a very famous, everybody talks about this, so I thought which is when the Gita says that don't focus on the result, focus on the action. So is there some dissonance in what I said, your desire, and therefore you do your destiny or no? Or the second part, which is focus on the action and not the result. I think they are very, very congruous to each other. It just means that if you have to achieve whatever your desire is, whatever your vision is, at the end of the day, you have to only focus on the action. If you do the right action consistently, you will get the result. But if one focuses on the result first, in school or in class, I want to get a first class, I want to get first. You keep focusing on first, you're not going to get there, you have to study. So I think that's important to understand that rather than stressing on the result, what is important to stress on is the action which will get you to the result. And that is what the famous, my understanding is that of the Gita shlok is that result is only action in another form. When the fruit of the action is the result. Now I'm going to come to some of the values which I have seen in the Tata Group, which I have seen in our own lives. And it is very simple. You can implement it in business anywhere else. Is the importance of integrity. Today, I think in modern management jargon, which was not there when I started, I guess, is authenticity. What does that mean? Integrity means that there is a consistency between what you think, what you say and what you do. And that is so important because once people think that you have integrity, then people will trust you. Then you will get significant advantage because frankly, in this world, there are not many people who can be trusted. What is the basic success of the Tata Group? Is really trust. And I'll give you examples. We acquired the pharmaceutical business, as I said. In pharmaceuticals, and at that time more so than now, there was no patent protection in India, and drug price control was there. So a lot of multinationals were not very happy in India because their profitability they felt was lower, and they were exiting. But what was concern for them is that they were leaving their global brands with the acquirer. And only two things were important for them. One is, since they were brands which were international, you needed to have a world-class quality, and they did not want you to export because prices in India and our costs of manufacturing for the same product were much lower than that the rest of the world. They told us this, that was part of the agreement, but they were not sure, because many of our fellow business people in the same area would do these things, would compromise either on quality or on exports. But we followed this into letter and spirit. And therefore, that reputation spread all over the industry globally. And every acquisition, every divestment a global pharma did in India, they came to us first. And believe me, at every stage, the price that we offered was lower than what others were offering. But they still had the comfort that this would be their international quality and there would be no export. Therefore, I think my conclusion is, as was seen in the Tata example, that if you have a value-based business, or if you are value-based in life, it creates significant economic value. Second lesson that I want to just share with you is an example. When we travel on a plane, sometimes you get struck by turbulence. I mean, there's a lot of rain. Last night from Mumbai, there was torrential rain. The airport was shut after some time, and we've all gone through this, where there's so much of turbulence. The plane goes up, down, and so on. And at that time, I think there are different types of people on the plane if you observe. There are some people who would be thinking of all their gods, and they will be sweating away and doing all the mala. They will be thinking of everything that, I just hope I survive. And then there's another group of people who are sitting away and, having their wine or having their food and just relaxed. In some ways, that is how life is. All of us have to go through. I mean, the environment sometimes is the same for all of us. But it is how you react. And to Dr. Adya's point, that is your internal leadership, how you react to a situation. In COVID, there were many people who were really depressed and you couldn't do anything. But there were others who managed life. So this is I think one lesson in life to learn is that it is within our own control and not the outside environment. How you react to it distinguishes a leader from a not leader. In life, everybody has to go through challenges. There is not a single person, at least I know of, however important he may be, however successful he may be in life in different paths, who has not gone through challenges. Mr. Tata, you would say, was be very successful, and he was. But do you think he did not go through challenges? He did. I mean, when the whole controversy happened with Mr. Cyrus Mistry and that was a very trying time for him. Bill Gates has been the richest man for decades in the world. Doesn't he go through difficult times? So all of us go through this time. And what, again, distinguishes one from the other is how do you deal with this? And that is where, actually, one has to be in some ways, if I may use the word, equanimous. Samatha is the right word in Hindi, but like, okay, hot and cold, or whether there is good times or bad times, how do you pass this through? Because again, in my own experience, I would say that when you have challenges, and if you really apply your mind, that's where you actually get opportunities which otherwise would not have come. I will give you another example in our own history. We were in the midst of COVID. The whole financial sector, and Dr. Ajay will know this better than I, was going through a big challenge. Particularly, we are in the NBFC space, which is like lending money. Because of the challenges in the environment, you were not getting your what you had lent, people were not paying you. On the other hand, there was pressure on the banks that you had to still pay them. And because of this environment, there was an opportunity in the sense that one of the companies in the NBFC space called DHFL, which had a borrowing from the banks of 90,000 crores, was into trouble. And that was taken by the RBI into the bankruptcy code. And that's the time when we, rather than fretting and fuming and worried about the situation because of COVID, took and saw that this was a great opportunity to invest in something which was at a much lower value than would have been otherwise. So it was only because of that, and that has significantly changed the fortunes of our company. So again, I think invariably, if we look somewhere, if one door closes through a challenge, there will be another door open for you for an opportunity. But we have to be ready for that. We cannot just sit and cry and, say, mera to sab khatam ho gaya. So I think, to me, that has been a great lesson. One of the things that comes out of Mr. Tata, anybody you ask, and I was reading so many of these posts on, on Instagram and all, was his humility. And that, according to me, is a very, very important value that all of us need to have. Why humility is important? Because if you have humility, if you are then open to listen to what others say to you. Whether it is, there are many people in the world who know more about a certain subject than you would do. I mean, no person in the world knows everything about every subject. So if you're humble, you're willing to learn and to listen. Besides that, if you're a leader in a business, if you're humble, you'll find that your teams will come up and say that this is not necessarily the right thing to do, and there are better things to do. And it is so important. And today, I mean, I have 100 examples of, as I said, have known Mr. Tata for many, many years, of his humility. Nobody would say that he was the chairman of the largest group in India, he was so successful. No, but he was still humble. And this is so important. And today's world, I think, humility is not given the importance that it should be. And I think I would blame, frankly, the media, the social, this thing, because everybody just glorifies people more than what they are. So humility is important. I'll give you a lesson which I have learned in the wrong way. In 2010, we sold we sold part of our pharma business to a multinational called Abbott. That was the largest, the highest valuation anybody had got in pharmaceuticals globally. And we got, for investment of pharma, which was in 1988, 1.5 crore, our valuation was 3.8 billion. So you can imagine this thing. So all of us, me included, our teams thought we were on Clyde 9, we know everything, and who the hell can tell us? And we started our financial services business, which was a smaller business, into a larger one. And started lending to real estate, et cetera, et cetera. And we made and many people were telling us that I think y'all are going too fast. But frankly, we didn't listen, because there was a certain arrogance. Okay, what do you know? I know everything. And that has cost us a lot. So what I want to say is that it is so, so important for us to recognize. These are very simple things I'm telling you, but frankly, from my experience, this is what is important. Another point I want to say is of association with good people. Again, in life, this is so important. Please have association, whether it is friend, whether it is a mentor, whether it's a guide, whether it is a really, really good book also. If you really can, who can tell you what is the right thing to do? Because all of us in life, there is a slippery path that we go through. Sometime in life, there is some weakness, and you need somebody to come and tell you, to shake you up that this is not right. Who is your true well-wisher? And especially the more successful you are, very few people will come and tell you. Because nobody wants to displease a important person. But I think that is the time when you need somebody who is your true well-wisher, who will tell you that this is right and this is not right. So please associate with good people. It is so important. I want to make now another point is that today one has to be continuously learning. Today, what you're learning in your class is not as much what you're learning itself, but opening up your minds to new things. The world is changing too fast. 2 years ago, I didn't know what Gen AI was. Now, every year, please remember, the amount of information, data, as you know, is the most important thing for Gen AI. The more data you have, the better the results, the more complicated the answers are. Every year, the amount of data that is being accumulated is doubling. So now it's 2 years since Gen AI has come out in the public. So the data which was in 2022, today, because it has doubled twice, is already 4 times. And therefore, the power that is there of Gen AI. Today, look at it. People say, software companies, will there be coding? There's no coding going to be. We were just speaking before. Professor Bhaskar was telling me how IT is not taking so many people. It's because it has to change now. It cannot be the same old IT. Similarly, in any area, medical research, you needed billions of dollars, you need hundreds of thousands of molecules to get one final drug into the market. You don't have to do that anymore. In diagnostics, you may not need doctors for a lot of the basic diagnostics. They'll be more reliable, they are saying, and every area it'll change. So AI is just one aspect. So you have to keep open to learning. Please develop that ability to continuously learn irrespective of your age. My final point, because I am now running out of time, is that we should look at ourselves as privileged. Why are we privileged? First of all, the scriptures say that after maybe millions of births, you get to become a human being. So that itself is a privilege. The second privilege is that all of us have come to an institute like this. How many people out of the 1.4 billion in India and the 8 billion in the world can come to an institute like this? Thirdly, the families we have, and so many other benefits we have. And the only difference, the biggest difference between any human being and any other living organism is the ability that we have to discriminate between what is right and what is wrong. And we should take examples from nature. During COVID, we realized the importance of oxygen in the air. But we don't know that every minute that we are here today, oxygen is being given to us free. So nature provides us with free oxygen, free water, free food, and yet what are we doing for that? So my only last thing is that we have to give back to society. Let us all have a vision that the world around us, whatever be our ability, we leave it in a better place than when you were born, rather than just sucking out from nature, rather than being a parasite to the world. How can we contribute to that? And that is what I think we have to understand, that we are the goal. The Tata say that we are just mere trustees, or even in the Gita, what is it said? That you are just trustees. We are just trustees of the wealth that has come to us. Wealth in terms of education, wealth in terms of money, wealth in terms of the families. We are just trustees, and we have to distribute it to the shareholders or to the stakeholders. So that is my last point. So if I was to summarize, I would say that change is inevitable, but there are values which have gone over thousands of years which are eternal. Change will come, but the values will still remain the same. Second thing I said about is the deep driving desire, how it can be your destiny. The third point I spoke about was on how focus on action and results will follow. Then the value of integrity or authenticity. Next, the value of equanimity and how challenges can open the door to opportunities. Humility, the association of good people, continuous learning, and making a difference in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ajay ji, for such thoughtful ideas on leadership. It's always good to reconnect with age-old wisdom. And these are, as they call, eternal and timeless ideas. And as a country, we are so fortunate that these ideas actually have served us for many, many years and continue to inspire us. So thank you very much for once again reinforcing those ideas. So this is a Q&A answer question session, and I also have my own Q&A, which is questions. And I'm sure that the volunteers will keep on collecting questions from the audience. Meanwhile, let me just start this conversation. We are going to take advantage of the fact that you have spent 40, 45 years of experience. You yourself have been a great leader. So we are going to probably engage you in a conversation on what they don't teach in an MBA school. It's not about what they teach in MBA school on leadership. So first, it's more like a query. If you look at leadership, especially when you talk about young people, so I have observed that there are two types of organization, and I have also close to 30 years of professional work experience. There are some organizations which are, I would say, respectful, where you add G when you call people or address people. Then there are organizations which address their colleagues by calling them by first name. Some of the youngsters, they think that organization where you use G are hierarchical organization, and therefore they are less professional. Whereas organization where you use first name are more professional, and therefore they are more inclined towards these organizations. In your long experience, we would like to know from you, what is the Indian native intelligence on this one?
Frankly, I am of the school that it's not how you address. It is important how you address, but I'll come to that second. But more important to say whether it is a professionally run organization, whether it's hierarchical or not, depends on how much is the ability, or how much is the, let's say, power that you have given to younger people to decide or to give their opinion. I think respect in words is one thing, but even respect you can make out. If somebody is willing to listen to you, if they listen to your suggestions, you don't necessarily have to accept them. You can say no. But at least you have a voice to say it, and the voice is heard genuinely. I think that is important. It's not as much, but to me, it's also important to use the right terminology, because in some ways, once you start using that terminology, you start respecting that person as well. I mean, I have seen, frankly, and more so in the Western world, people call even their parents by their first name. I mean, I find it really odd. How can you do that? I think that there should be a little bit of, so it's a bit of a mixed answer, but frankly, what is professional is important. I've seen people who listen to their colleagues, they're called by their first name, they're very senior, but they listen to what their colleagues are saying, and that is professionalism. On the other hand, I've seen, frankly, many autocratic organizations in the West where the chairman may be called by his first name, but that doesn't mean anything.
No, absolutely. In fact, this whole thing can turn even so hilarious. I remember I used to work in an organization, and we were working with a client where the CEO name initials were P.K. Mukherjee. And then one of the youngsters got so excited that this person called this person in public, hello PK. And obviously PK in India means different meanings, which was quite an embarrassing situation for everybody, including the person. And you are also right that, West has this own culture. We have our own culture. And therefore, just how you address a person does not make an organization hierarchical or less hierarchical. The second observation, the advantage of being in a management school is that you meet so many youngsters, and therefore you can also engage with their aspiration and their concern. The second question is in academic literature on leadership, it says that historically there has been over attribution of success to leaders, whereas actually success is because of so many people in the organization, including many unsung heroes. I also used to believe in that when I was young. But as I have grown old, I have realized that one person at the top can actually make a huge difference. That's my personal experience. And therefore, now I have started really believing in the power of one great leader, which has implication for succession planning, importance for how do you actually select leaders. What have, in your experience, have you seen? Can one person make a huge difference in organization?
So a leader who is a good leader can make a difference, significant. But that good leader will only be successful and make a difference if he or she develops a good team around. To imagine that the leader will do everything and will be good in everything, I think is not correct. So I think one of the real important ways how I judge leadership is what is the team that you develop underneath you. If you have a good team, your chances of a success are much higher. You're a much more successful leader. So, but that is a difference, I think, between a good leader and a not good leader. A person who can select teams, who can work with teams and provide the necessary vision. The vision has to come very often with the leader. But then the leader needs to build the team.
I was hoping that you will say that one person can really change the organization, because a lot of us would say one professor can really influence you and change your life.
No, but that's true. No, but that is true. A professor, you see how many, even I am in touch with so many young people. When you talk to them sometimes, why are they doing this? Why did a person do medicine? Or why did a person choose? It is because one teacher who was really good taught me biology correct, or taught me maths correct, or whatever it is. So it does me. So you all have a very, very important role to play. Don't dilute it.
So thank you for your kind word. And again, this reaffirmation that teachers really can change people's life, or at least can have that influence. The third question, which I have, which sometimes is concerning to me. So I do this social experiment in my classes, which is about how many of you would like to become CEOs in future, or let's say top leadership position. And there was a time when all hands will go up. And now I see that there are some people who would say that I don't want to be that. And one person actually gave an interesting reason. While there are always different reasons, one person gave a very interesting reason. He says, we are living in a world, social media, other world, where the world amplifies your imperfection. I said, nobody is perfect. But in a world which amplifies your imperfection, there is like too much of expectation burden. And being leader in this world is not so easy now, no more easy. So what are some of the lessons, because these guys are now going to be part of this world, which is on one hand is transparent, but can also be brutal. And therefore it puts pressure on whether we should become visible leadership, or can there be a possibility that leadership probably will get recognized after 20 years or 30 years?
I think irrespective of whether you're a leader or not, there is a genuine concern about what is happening because of the social, the media and the social pressure. Just like you all are involved in the university, so am I, just next door at Anand. And I am also in one or two other places. The amount of stress that you find with young students. I mean, there's a school that, because I'm involved there too, 8th class student jumped from the 47th floor and committed suicide. Why? Because in the social media, everybody must have said, we don't like you, I don't know what is a cancel culture and this and that. That happens all the time. You don't need to be a leader. So I think, again, in such times, and this is only increasing globally, as you know, at least I know in Anant, we have kept a full-time person only dealing with mental issues, because this is a serious issue. We can't afford to have somebody, commit suicide. It is a very serious issue. So I think this is where the solid foundation of eternal values comes into this thing. So whether you're a leader or not, you have to be equanimous. You can't get overexcited if people praise you to the, you're the best guy, you're what's? GOAT, as they call it, no? So you're not that. So I think, or when you're down, you're not the worst. I think you can get out. So I think that's where I feel the foundations are very important. And what I talked about, the values, is really some of those are the foundation that we have to have. And everybody has to be, and I think it's a responsibility of all of us in the community to see that these values are soaked in more.
Yeah. Thank you very much again for very insightful observation on the world we are living in. And obviously on one hand it's a big enabler, but on the other hand it has become over scrutinizing. And when it has become over scrutinizing, I don't know, sometimes I wonder that while resilience is a positive word, should we also now encourage people that in this world maybe a little bit of thick-skinned is okay?
Yeah, so you have to be tough and you have to realize. See, also you have to understand the internet is one thing where you can anonymously go, and I can go and curse the Prime Minister of the country. Anonymous. So there are so many people who do that all the time to everybody. So you have to get used to it. And some of the mails I get, if I seriously took it, I would be really depressed.
So I have many more questions. This conversation is so interesting, but I don't want to be the only one who is asking the questions. So would request Anirban if there are any questions from the audience. I don't know what is the format. Oh, okay. So you decide, Anirban, what is the format you want to put?
There are a few questions that we've gotten from the audience members. If you
Okay.
can ask.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll take one or two from the audience.
Okay. Yeah, so this is quite interesting. This is about, if I can take the liberty of saying it, so how can, let's say, so we always talk about, at least in academia, that we need to increase industry-academia interface. So this question is more about that how can business leaders now also work with local leadership, which is panchayat and blocks and districts. This is like business and society coming together to create solutions which are far more impactful and beyond, let's say, the metric on which business is measured.
I don't know. I didn't know if Saurabh or somebody has asked this question, because this is what we do. I think it's really very important. As I said, the leadership can be a force for good as well. I think business can be a force of good, and leaders will make business a force of good. I believe that profit, very often people who are talking about not for profit believe that profit is a dirty word. I think profit is important. That is the oxygen which makes you survive. But that is not the reason why you live. You do more than survival. And therefore, I think it's important that what we have learned and what we have practiced, or what institutions like the School of Ultimate Leadership is teaching, is that how can we use this leadership to improve our society. The sad part is that even after 75 years, and in spite of government spending I think if I'm not mistaken, every year in between the state and the center, almost 48 lakh crores of rupees are being spent on social, this thing. Dr. Ajay will know better, but I think it's something like that, or 15% of GDP. But yet, at least 200 million people in our country are living in where the Human Development Index is so poor comparable to sub-Saharan Africa. How can you have the 5th largest economy do this? And that's the place, and the way we can improve that is if we give more and more power to the panchayats at that last mile, because they are the ones who know the issues. India is not a homogeneous country. It's not even a homogeneous state. Every village is different, and it has its own problems. So who knows those problems? People from within. So how do we empower that? And experience has shown in India that those states which have empowered panchayats have done better than those which have not.
Wonderful. I think there are a lot of questions which are similar questions, but there are two which are a little different. One which is going to make my life easier, because tomorrow I have a class on merger and acquisition. So this question is on that when you acquire companies, or in your experience whenever you have acquired companies, I'm sure that there must be at times tough dilemmas. Here is a business proposal which is extremely attractive, but then there could be certain ethical issues there. So how do you decide when you have to acquire? Do you reject? Is that a deal breaker?
Ethical is a deal breaker. Because according to me, it is, as I said, values create economic value. I gave you the example of Tata. I gave you our own example. It has to be. So ethical values, yes.
So wonderful. Lesson for tomorrow's class is ethics is a deal breaker. Class is cancelled. We will meet next week.
That's the only good thing said in the whole hour.
All right, there is one more question which is around, so now India is increasingly recognized as producing leaders, which actually is Indian style, and therefore if you look at global leaders, people have started recognizing that there is something solid about Indian educational system, Indian culture, which is producing such extraordinary leaders. This is about that, how then we now go a one notch above and start influencing the global ecosystem through our leadership. While it is right now done in a limited way, it is like how can you make it a little bit more pervasive and produce many more leaders?
To be more pervasive, we need actually, we have some leaders, so our education system, the IIMs, the IITs and all are exceptions. If you look at the overall education system in India, is still not what it should be. The difference between the top institutions which are international and global and between the other ones is a big difference. So the new education policy, for instance, is trying to address that. I think we have to make our education right from the beginning much more, it requires a lot more change. I mean, in today's world, even now, most of the colleges, for instance, if you get into arts, you only do arts. If you get into science, or chemistry, you only do chemistry. That's not the way anymore in this world. How do you know with so much change happening? You need to have a better, more holistic learning. So I think we have a lot more to do. NEP, the new education policy, talks about aesthetic learning. It talks about sports. It talks about a much more diverse thing. So I think we need a lot more to be done to make a real impact.
In fact, absolutely, it completely resonates with me. what my thinking. I think so far we have these islands of excellence, but if we really want to do justice to 140 crore people, we need let 1,000 flowers bloom. The institutes at 150 or 200. So very well said. Thank you very much. I think this pretty much covers. I'm sorry, I have actually looked at the questions and then clubbed them. If you feel that I didn't ask your question, I'm sorry, but I hope that has already been covered. So we take questions, 1 or 2 questions. So yeah, okay.
Why don't you introduce yourself also?
Good evening, sir. I am a student of the PGPX program at IIMA for the batch of 24-25. My name is Vipul. Thank you for your lovely words, sir. I loved your ideas on ethics and authenticity in leadership. However, in the Indians, we see a lot of competitive mindset, and we see in our surroundings that a lot of people would use unethical means to kind of get forward in life, and everybody's trying to kind of play alpha. And what would be your advice then be to a person who's trying to be authentic? And
So, again, sometimes in the short term, you may feel that the person who's doing unethical practices is successful. But in the long term, I think it is important to follow the ethical value system, because it will create value. And it may be difficult for a short term, but definitely you will feel happier, and in the long term you will do well. I gave you the example of Tata. I gave you our own example. When I was talking about quality for pharmaceutical, you had to invest a lot of money. We lost money not exporting, but in the end you actually gain. So take a longer term view, and today your lifespan, they say, will go above 100. Most 50% of people born after, at your age are going to cross 100. So you have a long time to go. So please follow ethical this thing. No, serious, I'm very... Yeah.
thank you, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, sir. Thank you for gracing us with your presence today. It has been an absolute privilege to be here. Hello? Yeah. Thank you so much for gracing us, and it's been an absolute privilege to be here today. So the Piramal group is known for doing well with doing good. And you have had, along with great corporate success, a lot of other philanthropic activities. How do you balance these two out, the corporate good as well as the social sector initiatives that you have from the perspective of a corporate? Thank you.
So first of all, let me just say, we are saying doing well and doing good. So that means whatever we do, whether it's in business or whether it's on the social responsibility, it has to do good as well as. So both you have to, the two criteria are important. Any business you do well, that means profitability, but it should also be good. So for instance, when you are doing a pharmaceutical business, why is it doing good? Because you're alleviating human suffering. And you have to also make money in it, because otherwise business will not survive. On the other hand, when you are, and why is, as I said, profit is important even to do good. Where will you get money? You can't do philanthropy on just love and fresh air. You need money. So you need that. The philanthropic activity is also doing good, and you have to be measured that the investment that you're doing in that activity, is it giving you the desired results? The results will not be in money, but suppose it is to benefit XYZ people. Are we doing that? This is the change we are making. So both. It's a combination. It's not one or the other. It is both together. Doing well and doing good.
So, all right. I think...
There is one. Let's have one last.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you for your talk today. your ideas about there being congruence between desire and destiny are especially thought-provoking. I'm Akanksha from the PGPX batch. My question is, under your leadership, there have been so many acquisitions and ventures added to the Piramal group. How do you then foster a culture of, innovation and agility with such diversification?
So I think, it is important that you have the culture where you talk about values. I didn't, because it was a short time, but innovation is one of the most important values that we actually emphasize on. Because in this world, if you are not innovative does not only mean necessarily new products. It can mean new products. It can mean new ways of doing things too, because the world is changing so much. So yes, innovation is important, and that's what we keep emphasizing and encouraging people, seeing how the actions, so the way we judge performance appraisal also involves what steps are you doing to be innovative. It's very important.
All right. Thank you very much, Ajay ji, for your thoughtful comments and ideas distilled from your long years of experience. It was a pleasure to have you here. I'm sure after this, our students are going to say that this version of what you don't teach in a management school was better. Please do visit us often. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Piramal. Can I just request you to be here? Thank you so much, Sunil and Mr. Piramal, for your talks. May I please request Professor Bhaskar and Dr. Ajay to please join the speakers on the dais. Also request Professor Bhaskar to provide token of our appreciation to Mr. Piramal. Thank you everyone for joining. Please join us for a high tea outside. Go out and then on your left.